This is the first part of 3.5. So we're going to end up doing 4 examples, and there will be some practice segments involved. So in 3.4, it's basically doing multi-step type of inequalities. Now 3.5, we're doing inequalities with variables on both sides. Okay, so we have to remember how to use our inverse operations correctly. So basically, the main idea today is you want to combine any like terms that are on the same side first. Move all your constants and variables on opposite sides. Remember, we want the positive coefficient when we do that, so that's when we generally want to move the smaller coefficient. And then basically determining which one's the positive, or the way to get the positive result determines which way to move the variables. Okay? Alright, so here we go. Here's our first 2 examples. You can call them examples 1A and 1B. I am going to do both, so make sure you have some space. Alright, so first one. Remember, treat your inequality as if it's the equal sign. So now I have a 3x and a positive x. I want to move the smaller one, which is this guy right here. So I'm going to move that by doing the inverse. Why did I subtract? Because it's positive. Positive is like plus. The inverse is to minus, or negative. 3x minus 1x is 2x. So I have 2x plus 8 greater than 0. Oops, forgot my 8. Okay, now it's just a 2-step inequality. I'm going to isolate x, so I'm going to minus 8. So now I get 2x greater than negative 8. So I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. Now I'm dividing by a positive number here, so I do not have to flip my inequality. So I get x greater than negative 4. Just because I end up with a negative number here doesn't mean I flip the inequality. I divided by a positive, so I do not flip my inequality. And then, of course, we do our graph. It's open circle to the right. So there you go. Okay? All right? Let's do the second one. Now, in this case, we have that decimal. We'll worry about the decimal in a minute. First thing we want to do is decide which variable term do we want to move. Well, this is smaller, so we're going to move it to the left. So we're going to minus it because it's positive. 6 minus 3.5x is 2.5x. Okay, now I don't have to change the decimal just yet. What I'm going to do now, this is minus 1. So I'm going to plus 1 to both sides. So I get 5, so now I have 2.5x less than or equal to 5. And actually, if you notice already, 2.5, we're going to divide into 5. It actually goes in, right? Because isn't 2.5 half of 5? For those of you that don't like that, you can just go ahead and at this point multiply this by 10 to get rid of that decimal. So basically, I would have 25x less than or equal to 50. And 25, when we go ahead and do the division by 25 on both sides, we get x less than or equal to 2. Now notice I did not flip my inequality because I divided by a positive. So x less than or equal to 2. So we have closed circle to the left. Okay, in both these instances we had to decide which variable term to move. We moved the smaller of the 2. And then in this case, we had to then move the constants together before we got to our 2-step equation. Okay? Alrighty, so now it's your turn. So you have 2 problems. Go 3 minutes, so go ahead and pause the video now. Alright, now that you've had a chance to try it, I'm going to go ahead and do them. So here's the first one. So now I have 0 greater than or equal to 3x plus 6 minus 6. I get negative 6. So now I have negative 6 greater than or equal to 3x. Divide by 3 on both sides, so I get x. Negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2, greater than or equal to x. Now remember, I want my x term first, so I'm going to rewrite it. That means I have to flip my inequality. I divided by a positive number here, so I did not flip my inequality. The only reason I flipped my inequality is because my variable's on the wrong side. And then, of course, we have our graph, less than or equal to, so closed circle to the left. All right, second one. Let's see, I'm going to move the negative 2t because that's smaller than positive 5t. So I have 7t plus 1 less than negative 6. Alright, so now I'm going to move that 1. So now I have 7t less than negative 7. Divide by a positive 7, I get t less than negative 1. I do not flip my inequality because I divided by a positive number. Even though my answer ended up negative, that's fine. And then, of course, the graph. Less than 1, open circle to the left. Okay? So hopefully you got yours correct. If you did not get them correct, hopefully you figured out what your mistake was. Notice the skills we're using here. It's exactly from Chapter 2. The only reason this makes a Chapter 3 problem is because it has an inequality. All that means is when you write your final answer, it has an inequality, and you have to do a graph. That's it. Everything else, all the skills and methods we're using, come from Chapter 2. Okay, 2 down, 2 more to go. Here's example 2, A and B. Again, we're going to do both. Now, sometimes you need to simplify a side before you can actually combine. So in this case, we have to do distributive property here because my x is trapped inside the parentheses. And the only way I set it free is by doing distributive property, so break it out. So I'm going to distribute, I'm going to bring down the 3x, and I'm going to distribute this 6. 6 times 1, 6. Be very, very careful here. This is 6 times a negative x. That's negative 6x. Okay. Now, I want to bring my x terms together. The negative 6x is the smaller one, so I'm going to bring it over with the 3. And now I get 9x greater than 6. Divide by 9. I'm dividing by a positive, so my inequality does not flip. 6/9 reduces to 2/3. Don't panic about the fraction. Okay. Open circle to the right. There you go. Okay, second one. Now, if you're noticing, this one has a bunch of decimals. Now, in this case, since every single one of them is a decimal, I'm actually going to clear the decimals in the beginning. Now, this problem, let me go back. Here had 1 decimal. We dealt with it because it actually ended up not being a big deal. However, in this case, since they're all decimals, let's go ahead and get rid of them. So the smallest place value is tenths. So we're going to multiply everything by 10. So really our problem is 16x less than or equal to negative 2x plus 9. So let's see, we have the negative 2x and a positive 16. This one's smaller, so we're going to move that one. 16 plus 2 is 18. So we have 18x less than or equal to 9. Divide by 18 on both sides. Now I divided by a positive, so my inequality does not flip. 9 over 18 reduces to 1/2. And then of course our graph. 1/2, 2/2, 0/2, or just 0. Less than or equal to, that's closed circle to the left. Okay? Alrighty. Now it's your turn. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead and pause the video now. Okay. Now that you've had a chance to do it, I'm going to go ahead and do it. In this case, I have to do distributive property 2 times. Be very careful of the negatives here. Okay. All right, let's see. This is a negative 5r, so that's the one that's going to move. It's smaller. So now I have this. I'm going to move the 6. So now I have 16 greater than or equal to 8r. Divide by 8 on both sides. I get 2 greater than or equal to r. It's backwards, so I'm going to change it. And then, of course, we have our graph. Less than or equal to, so close circle, the left. Okay? All right. Second one. Now, since every single one of these, except for this one, is a decimal, and that's okay, I'm going to clear this decimal. I'm going to multiply the whole thing by 10. Okay, this is a big one, isn't it? Alright, on the left-hand side here, I can bring these two together. Now, since they are on the same side, I do not use inverse operations. I'll say it again. Since these are on the same side, I do not use inverse operations. So, I basically have a positive 5x and a positive 19x. So 5x plus 19x is 24x. Okay, now 3x is the smaller one, so I'm going to move that one. It's positive, so I have minus. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite over here. So now I have 21x less than, whoops, I forgot my minus 3. 21x minus 3 less than 60. So now I'm going to plus 3. So now I get 21x less than 63 divided by 21. X is less than, what is that, 3? 21 times 3 is 63. Yep. Okay, and then of course we have our graph. So, there it is. Hopefully you got yours right. If you didn't, hopefully you can figure out what your mistake is. Alright, so we're actually going to stop right there for today. I will finish up the special cases. I will do that in a separate video for that. So, get to work on your homework.